You're listening to episode number 7 of the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. The biggest challenge for most agents, whether you're a regular agent or a green, eco, or wellness agent, is attracting leads. This week, I wanted to share an interview I had with Kristen Jackson. She's a realtor and founder of Client Event Blueprint. She also was a speaker at the Wellness Real Estate Summit that I just hosted in August. I love her story, and she's such a great resource for agents that I really wanted to share this interview with you. Even though she's not necessarily a wellness or green focused business, she has created a special wellness events list that she's made for my Facebook group and Wellnessary Pro members, but she's also agreed to share it with anyone who hears this podcast. So be sure to stay to the end to hear that info. Kristen spent tons of money buying leads, doing open houses, and struggling to get business until she started hosting client events. She spent less money and built stronger connections by providing value that her target market needed, and so was able to build trust and win more business, she says, the easy way. Events can be great for any agent, but throwing any old open house party won't necessarily get you new clients. If you're a wellness agent, there are so many unique events that you could hold. Imagine the unique buyer workshops that you could do for new home buyers, giving them a really different experience, full of value that could help eliminate fear and build trust in you. So if you want to get new leads the easy way, stay tuned for today's episode. Let's grow. Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast, where we explore a unique strategy no one is talking about that will enable you to engage more people with authentic conversations about your business more often. And it's called Wellness Real Estate. Not sure what that is or how it can help you as an agent? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. In fact, Wellness Real Estate is growing so rapidly that it is projected to be nearly $870 billion by 2027. I'm Sheila Alston, and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Healthy Home Media, where I help agents all over the country leverage this new trend in the industry to spark new conversations that will get people to listen to you and notice your brand. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels without any leads or sales to show for it, then stay tuned. I guarantee this podcast is not like any you've heard before. Welcome to the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with client events.
Yes, my name is Kristen Jackson. I am a real estate agent. I am sort of in transition. I was originally in New Jersey, where I did real estate for 3 years. And then last year I moved to Sydney, Australia for my husband's job and getting into real estate here, which I'm finding is a little bit different, which is totally fine. But I got into real estate. So before real estate, I worked on Broadway. I was a Broadway stage manager. And I had been touring with the show for 2 years, living out of suitcases and in hotels. And I was looking forward to planting roots and buying something. So I bought my first house, fell in love with that process. My realtor was actually a former actor who had transitioned into real estate. And I thought, okay, maybe this is possible. This could be that next transition to another career. I can take the skills from theater and bring them into real estate. So that's sort of how I fell into real estate and just kind of fell in love with the industry.
Oh, that's awesome. And then because of your background in state, in Broadway, it was probably easy for you to just think of new ways to get clients. Is that what you did? You just thought, how am I going to get leads? And you had events? Or how did that?
I sort of, when I got started, I did have the idea to start doing events, and I wanted to start doing buyer workshops because I especially wanted to help people in theater, because theater is such a unique world. Finances are really unique because jobs are so transient. Like the most you typically will work on a show is like 2 to 3 years. So you're constantly having like periods of unemployment and just kind of finances all over the place. So it's not necessarily a goal that a lot of people talk about in terms of being able to buy a home, and going through the process was really, really eye-opening for me. And so when I first got into real estate, I was like, I want to help theater people and I want to do these workshops so that I can educate them on the process. And then that sort of went on the back burner. And I did what all the advice was telling me, which was internet leads, paying for Zillow, doing open houses, doing door knocking. I tried all of those traditional lead gen methods, and I just wasn't seeing a lot of success with those, or I was finding it was really taking me a long time to warm these leads up because they really were cold. I mean, even if it's a Zillow lead who is wanting to schedule a time to see a house, they still don't know you. They don't have any new like and trust factors. So I felt like that took a lot of time to to really convert them to actually working with me, to being a loyal client, not just always filling out those forms. So it probably took about a year until I went back to that idea. I was like, no, you know what? I need to do these workshops. Like, that's what my thinking was. I do really want to educate people on the process, and I want to work with my sphere and educate them and show them that this is possible. And so that's when I started doing workshops, and I fell in love with them. And then I was like, I don't want another internet lead ever again, because the leads that you get from those workshops were just so much better quality.
Yeah. Well, so then tell me what your workshop was about. It was about for buyers and educating them.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about knowing what to present, and how did you present it, and where did you present it, and all of that?
So I really considered it to be a buyer consult, and to go over the home buying process and have a lender there to answer questions and just be available for them to ask questions. And so I actually had 2 different series, I would call, of buyer workshops, but I started with my sphere because that seemed to be one of the easiest way, and it was a good way to practice. And so I kind of figured out the audience and what was the best time to get together with them, what would be how to get people to show up, and like what would be most useful for them. So we found, most people work in Broadway, and then on Wednesdays you typically have 2 shows. You have a matinee and then an evening performance, and there's a break in between. So we thought, what if we got a room at a restaurant and they can order anything on the menu and our lender's going to pay for it. So we're giving them a free dinner.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to them, and then they can ask questions. And it actually ended up being really fun and really successful. We didn't have to spend any money on ads because it was all word of mouth. Or we also their stage managers all have like a very good network and community. So I could send them, the flyer they printed out, put it on the call board. So we didn't have to spend any money, because it was between shows. They weren't going to be ordering alcohol. So, I mean, it really wasn't that expensive. I think our lender maybe spent $300, on it, but it was really great, and we got lots of sales out of it. So yeah, it really was just going over the buying process, going over the lender. We had a lender that specifically knew about theater backgrounds, and how that affects your finances and getting a mortgage. And then just being there to ask questions or answer questions. And we also did a big focus on the area, the towns that we were in, because obviously people would be commuting. My town was where most people of Broadway live in New Jersey, because of the commute, and that's really why I ended up there. But I knew a ton of other people from Broadway in that town, so we would also educate them on the area. But then once I started doing that, then I started doing general home buyer workshops. So a similar format where I kind of went in just being like, it's like a buyer consult, but also kind of casual. Like, it really is about them and what they want to know. And so I'd ask them, I'd start with, what do you want to learn today? And sometimes it would surprise you, or you kind of guide your presentation to what they want to know. But yeah, it's really just one big buyer consult that you're able to do in 1 hour for like 20 to 30 people. So it is a more efficient use of time. And
yeah. So how many leads, what's the most amount of leads that you got in one buyer consult before?
Well, the most people, so I actually like mine to be small, tend to be like 10 would be the perfect number. But the first one that we did with the theater community was 30 people came.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot, like, especially, because we didn't have mics, and that was a little bit overwhelming. I think keeping them really small is good. I've seen some realtors do these seminars where they're on a stage and they've got a mic and it's this giant audience. But the thing is that when it's more intimate, you can really connect with people better. Not to mention that they're not going to like escape out the back door without you like booking an actual consult or like booking that next step. So when it's smaller, I feel like you make a better connection, you have a better relationship, and you're more likely to book appointment because you're talking to every single person.
Right. And they're going to come up to you and ask you a question, where if it's too big, they might just take your information and run and then go talk to the realtors they know.
Exactly.
Excuse me. Okay, so you have a membership now called Client Event Blueprint. Tell me about how you went from the transition of just doing these buyer consults to thinking of this membership that you have.
Yeah, so I loved doing these buyer workshops. I was always on a team when I was in real estate. I was in one team for 1 year, and then the next 2 years I was in another team. And they did seller workshops as well that I would be a part of, and team and events, client appreciation events like movie nights, pie days, those kinds of things. So I really could see how successful events could be, not to mention what I was experiencing on my own doing these buyer workshops. And people would reach out to me. They'd send me messages asking about my buyer workshops and how I did them, and just general questions. And I realized, oh, this is not as easy for everyone else as it is for me. And definitely from my theater background, I mean, I can put together an event really easily. And I think I took that for granted, thinking, it's so easy for me, but it's not actually easy for everyone else. So I created this membership just to help other realtors do the same, because I've seen firsthand how events can change your business, transform your business. And then just the data says that most buyers and sellers find their realtors through referrals or repeat business, and events help that.
Right. Well, and it's just like you said, so much more casual. People can ask questions. They feel they're in a safe environment because it's not one-on-one where you're going to be expecting anything from them, but it's small enough that they can ask questions and they can hear the questions of other people, and you're giving them food and maybe alcohol or just and
it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think I also, there are definitely things that I learned from trial and error, and some, just talking to some realtors who think, events need to be big. Like if I'm doing a home buyer seminar, I need to have, rent out a conference room and have a PowerPoint presentation. I need to be on stage with a mic. And I was seeing some realtors going about it not necessarily the great way. One, you're spending a ton of money, but you're also not getting that return on investment. Whereas my seminars, I'd maybe spend $100 and I would be getting sales out of that. I mean, even if you get a rental out of that, you've made your money back.
Right.
So that return on investment is huge. Whereas if you're going to spend, $2,000 renting out a room, it's a little bit trickier to get that ROI. Not to mention you had 100 people come, which is great, and you got 100 leads, but you didn't really connect with anyone.
Right. And so maybe it would be much better to have more smaller events just more frequently, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you can do a small event every month.
Yeah, I would do mine every month. And then my goal was to do one of each seminar, each type. So like do one with the theater sphere community, and then do one, I called it Brews and Buying. And my target was first-time home buyers who are living in Jersey City or Hoboken. So they're living in the city and then moving out to the suburb, because I saw this progression that a lot of young couples were doing. So I went to them, did it at a brewery, which was really fun, and got people out. So in my ideal world, I would have done two workshops each month, which sounds like a lot, but like you ease into it and it just becomes so easy. And especially when you don't put a pressure on yourself, to have this big presentation and be really formal, that you're really going there, having a conversation with people, asking them what they want to know, and then basically doing a buyer consult, which you should probably have under your belt anyways. It became really easy just to keep doing them.
Well, and if you're a newer agent, you could probably just team up with a more experienced agent and do one together until you got really comfortable with doing them.
Yeah.
And like you said, bring a lender in.
Yeah. And that's why, and I always had a lender with me. So that also helped to feel like it's not just you against other people, and to get a little bit more comfortable, because the lenders can definitely, you can give them the floor and, let them talk if you get nervous.
Did you bring handouts, or did you bring stuff for people to bring home with them?
So I always had a workbook that had all the information that I wanted them to take home. So that had the buyer process, because all of my seminars were people who were living in the city and urban areas, moving out to the suburbs. I had information about the towns. I would include information from the lender that the lender wanted to include. So I would have all of that in the workbook, and they could take notes on it as well. And so that way it also put less pressure on me if we didn't get through it, because I knew that they have stuff that they can take home and then they can read through. So I don't have to cover everything. And it gave me some guidance, that's something that they could look over, because it had the whole buying process. I would go over it, but then they can also look at it and follow along.
So if someone joins your client event blueprint, they will get access to all of your workbook materials. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So currently, Monthly members get access to the current event and any events in the future, and the events vary between client appreciation events, community events, and seller buyer workshops. I'll also do an investor workshop and can niche down a little bit into workshops as well. Annual members get access to everything. So I do currently have a seller workshop blueprint that is in the membership that does have those workbooks. If you're going to be doing a webinar, it has a presentation. And it also tells you everything that you need to know. It gives you Facebook ad settings, all of that. But I will say the workbooks and the presentations are a huge value because they probably each took me like 30 hours to do each of those. So they are major time sucks, and they look great, and I enjoy doing it. But the first time I was doing it, I was like, man, this is taking so much time.
Well, and how wonderful if you can share with other realtors, because we don't all need to create the wheel, over and over again.
And that's kind of how I feel too. It's like, well, I already made it. I did all this work.
Yeah.
I might as well share it with other realtors because we're all busy, and you should be spending more time with your clients, not on Canva, focusing and font sizes and different fonts and moving things around and pictures. And so, so I really just wanted to help other realtors and share what I've already done.
Okay, so Kristen, how did it change this last year though, with not very many people having events in person? Do you have virtual events that you share?
So it's funny because I had actually probably 6 months before COVID happened, I had started thinking about doing webinars and doing some kind of things virtually, because obviously that's easier for me that I wasn't having to travel into the city, but also I could create some kind of system where it was like an evergreen webinar where it seems like it's a webinar that you're seeing something live, but it's actually a pre-recorded webinar, and that's a good way to get leads. So I'd already been thinking about it, and then COVID hit, and I was like, okay, I need to just finally do it. So then I started doing those virtually. And events, you can also do a virtual events too. I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge there are definitely some things that you need to change. I think the biggest thing about virtual events is keeping them really small, because the more people you have, it can get really confusing, or just people talking over each other, and it's not as fun. So keeping them small is good. But there's also ways to do social distance events. You just have to get a little bit creative.
So are you saying that your buyer or sellers workshops, you could just create a webinar where you're explaining everything, and you do it once, and then you make it an evergreen thing where that's where you would run ads to that, and then people would think that they're watching a webinar, and then they can learn more about it afterwards?
So what you do is you do one webinar that you are live and you have people there. And I recommend, if you're using something like Zoom, you do have the webinar add-on, so you don't have people's faces, so it's not obvious that their face isn't up there. And also you don't have any privacy concerns, but you do record yourself. And then Zoom has an option that you can create an on-demand webinar. So you can take that recording, you can run ads, you can set up a sign-up sheet for that on-demand webinar. And it'll look like it's live because the people will select a date and a time, and then they sign up for that, and then it shows up at that time. So that could be something that you could just continually run ads to get people to these.
Well, and you know what I love about that is that as a consumer, I've joined webinars that are, a week out, and then I forget and I get busy and I can't go to them. So if it's an on-demand webinar and they're like, oh, there's one in 15 minutes, and you're like, well, I'm going to be available in 15 minutes, and then you can actually watch it.
Well, in the age of Netflix, people want on-demand. And, one of the struggles and what I would teach in terms about webinars is that you don't want to be running ads too far in advance. I say max 2 weeks before the event, because people want that on demand. Or even if they sign up a week before the event, they're likely going to forget it. So you have to give a whole lot of reminders, but also most of your signups will likely happen the 24 hours before your event, because in this age of Netflix, in this age of internet, people want things right away. So what's kind of nice about that on demand is that you aren't doing 10 webinars, but you do have options so that someone can see an ad and be like, great, there's one starting in an hour. Perfect. I will jump on that. And then it seems like it's a live webinar. And then you're getting that leads, you're getting that contact information. Because it's video, they're trusting you, you're looked at an authority figure, they're knowing and liking you, all of that. And then you have a call to action at the end to set up that next step. So like an in-person buyer consult, or a Zoom buyer consult, or for sellers, it could be a listing appointment at their house.
So I see how it would be really fun, like at a brewery or something, but how do you make a Zoom webinar fun like that? Make it casual and, say you have 10 people on your first one and it's live. Do you have all the boxes showing and how to, it's more of a presentation that way. And so how do you
Yeah.
keep it from being so formal?
It's a little bit more formal, and I wouldn't really consider it to be a social event. I don't particularly like the boxes. I do like that webinar format, and I think it does put people a little bit on the spot because most people probably are watching from sweatpants from their home.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to be on camera anyways. So I wouldn't worry too much about making it fun and making it this social environment. By doing it at a brewery is more to get people there, more than that it's going to be this fun social event. It's really because it doesn't scream salesy. Whereas if you do something at your brokerage, that's like, it's salesy. They're going to lock the door, lock me in until I agree to sell my house.
Right.
So Zoom is like slightly different. But I think in order to keep it engaging, having the presentation is huge. And having a presentation that flows, that's a lot of slides, so that people aren't looking at the slide and be like, okay, great, I got it. Let me look at Instagram. So I think the magic number for slides is 75, which sounds like a lot, but if you're doing an hour presentation, that's about like 45 seconds to a minute per slide.
So it's just so you're clicking through them and there's something changing.
So they're watching. So they're not off doing other things. So they're actually paying attention and listening to what you're giving them. That there's value, because you can't tell virtually if they're really paying attention.
So as part of your membership, you will give those like slide templates out so someone doesn't have to make up 75 slides.
Yes. So yes, it has whether you want to do it in person or virtual, you get the workbook or you get the slide presentation. So again, yes, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Really, it's just you can customize it as much as you want, put your branding information in, change your colors if you want, and then change things for specific for your market. But I've really done most of the work for you.
Yeah, well, and I know you have so many event ideas too, so it's not just the workshops. So being a member, you get the list of all of her great fun event ideas, and you have a bonus for these for Wellness RE Pro members and Wellness Real Estate Professionals. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have created a list of wellness events. So if you are interested in wellness as well as real estate, there are ways that you can integrate the two and do them with fun events. So whether it's client appreciation events, doing educational events, so sort of like these buyer or seller workshops, but more of a niche focus on green elements or healthy homes, as well as community events. So if you want to bring more brand awareness, meet new people, you can do events. And most of the events have been created with COVID in mind, so they're either virtual or socially distanced. And then once COVID restrictions are done, hopefully at some point, they could also be done in person. You could definitely utilize those same ideas.
Oh, that's awesome. So if you are already a member of Wellness RE Pro, you're going to be getting this list. So thank you so much, Kristen. And if you are a member of Wellness Real Estate Professionals, you can join my membership of Wellness RE Pro and you can get this, or you can just simply go to Kristen Jackson's website. They how do they get in touch with you? The Client Event Blueprint and
clienteventblueprint.com, and then I can also give a link to you so that you can share, that they can find it right away.
I will post it in the text, so you'll read it and you click on that, and she'll get it to you. That's awesome. And you have like 24, so you have one event for 2 years, a wellness event.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's podcast. You can find Kristen's wellness events list. She has 24 ideas for you. That's one event each month for 2 years. Simply download the list at bit.ly. It's bit.ly/wellness event ideas. Next week, I have a real treat for you. Neil Collins is the broker who started the regenerative real estate movement. Now, you might be wondering, what is regenerative real estate? It's not just about being green. It's a movement towards creating a business that is driven by your values, deepens relationships around you, resulting in more meaningful work. That in Neil's experience has differentiated him from the other 2.2 million agents out there. So if you're curious to know about regenerative real estate, you are going to want to tune in next week. Thanks for listening and have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new that will inspire you to think about your branding and how you can market yourself a little differently. If you enjoyed this episode, then you're going to love what I have for you because you don't need to wait to go get extra certifications or to grow and expand your network to get started attracting those new leads right now. You can simply begin by talking about wellness real estate trends and what you've learned on this podcast with others. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff that no one has heard about, and I have all the tools that can make it even easier for you. Wellness Real Estate Magazine is a brand new wellness lifestyle magazine, and it's the only magazine that brings health and home together. We educate readers on industry trends and how to create a healthier home environment, written by industry experts around the country. And we have 3 covers to choose from: Wellness RE, Healthy Home, and Wellness at Home, so you can easily find one that aligns with your unique brand and messaging. These magazines are the perfect done-for-you tools that help you not only stay top of mind, but they educate and engage your audience, which positions you as an industry expert. Differentiate yourself and grow your brand the easy way. Learn more at healthyhomemedia.com.